As soon as she appeared, she knelt down on the ground and planted a seed. It grew into an olive tree. The olive tree bore olives. They could be eaten, pickled, and pressed for oil. It provided food for the city's people. Her gifts were very useful. Zeus made his decision. I believe the goddess Athena has won. From now on, you will protect the people of Athens. I appoint you as the goddess of Greece. Hello, everyone. Recently, I visited a country renowned for its rich history and ancient civilization. That country is Greece. I first arrived in Athens, the capital of Greece. After arriving there, I witnessed ancient mythology come to life in modern Greece, within the city of Athens. It left me utterly amazed. One particular story left me in awe. It was the one about the Parthenon. Its construction is grand, majestic, dignified, and elegant. It gives off an aura of dominating the four directions. I was truly astonished. At the time of its construction, almost everyone in the world was uneducated. To have built such an exquisite structure, it's truly breathtaking. That was 2,500 years ago. This temple was built in the very center of what is now Athens. It was both a coincidence and divine will. In the approximate center of Athens, there is a large stone hill, not too high nor too low. The ancients named it the Acropolis. This temple was built on top of the Acropolis. If you stand on top of the Acropolis and survey the area around you, you can look upon the entire city of Athens. You can see it all, front, back, left, and right. It's both the highest and the central point. Isn't it amazing? Having built this structure on top of this rocky hill makes it especially sturdy. Plus, the temple itself is very tall, grand, and majestic. It forms a perfect union with this hill. The reason for building this temple was a great war. At that time, around Athens in Greece, there was a superpower called the Persian Empire. It was a vast empire spanning 3 continents. First, Europe. Then, it occupied part of Asia. It also occupied parts of North Africa. It was a colossal empire of that era. Between them, there were many wars of conquest. They lasted over 50 years. In the final battle, the Greek coalition won. They defeated the Persian Empire. Defeating them didn't mean annexing them. The Persians invaded to annex Greece, but were defeated, and they retreated. Over 2,000 years ago, this region wasn't a unified country yet. Back then, they were called city-states or city-state alliances. At that time, the Greeks did not consider Greece to be a country. They united to fight off outside invaders if needed. The Parthenon was built to celebrate their victory over the Persians, and to thank the goddess Athena for her protection. They built the temple to worship the goddess Athena, so she may protect them and help them fend off foreign invaders. When the allies met, they all agreed to contribute money and effort to build a temple for the goddess. At that time, it was the most glorious, grand, and beautiful temple in Greece. It was also the most powerful temple, built to unify the people's hearts, to unify their energy, to unify their resolve against enemies, to say, we are together, we are a team, we have a common belief. It represents the divine, religion, political power, and sovereignty. Construction began in 447 BC. It took 15 years to complete the temple. In Greek mythology, they believed in many gods. So many gods. Zeus was the king of the gods. He was deciding who would protect the area around Athens. He held a meeting with the gods. Two gods showed the most interest. One was the goddess Athena. The other was the sea god. They both wanted the Athens area. Zeus said, "You can't both do it. Only one god can be in charge. I propose a contest. Let's see who can give the best gift to the city. The one who gives the best gift will be appointed." The sea god said, "I'll go first." In the past, gods loved war. He took a large trident, a weapon used in battles, and struck the ground forcefully. Seawater started gushing out. The other god said, "Why seawater? These are humans, not fish." That's enough. The next performance was by the goddess. As soon as she appeared, she knelt down on the ground and planted a seed. It grew into an olive tree. The olive tree bore olives. They could be eaten, pickled, and pressed for oil. It provided food for the city's people. There were other seeds as well, such as wheat, rice, and vegetables. Her gifts were very useful. Zeus made his decision. "I believe the goddess Athena has won. From now on, you will protect the people of Athens. I appoint you as the goddess of Greece." From then on, the goddess Athena became the guardian of this place. She holds an important position in ancient Greek mythology and religion. In times of war, she represents wisdom and strategy. In times of peace, she takes on another role. She assists in the creation of art, such as weaving and other handicrafts. For example, weaving in agricultural planting. People naturally held the goddess Athena in awe and worship. Zeus decided that from then on, the city would be called Athens. Athena's birth was a very special phenomenon. After all, she was a goddess. Her father was the king of the gods, Zeus. There was an ancient Greek myth that said the king of the gods, Zeus, would be overthrown by one of his own children, who would then rule the world and the universe. When Zeus heard this prophecy, he felt very uneasy. He was always afraid that his children would murder him and replace him. The more he thought about it, the more distressed he became. When his wife became pregnant again, he swallowed his wife in one gulp. He ate her whole. After he swallowed her, a few months later, Zeus had a splitting headache and unbearable pain. There was no way to solve this pain. No medicine worked. So, he asked the blacksmith god to split his head open with an axe. Since gods can't die, it was fine to split his head open and check. After his head was split open, out came the little goddess Athena. She sprang from her father's head dressed for battle, holding a spear and wearing a helmet. She was born from Zeus's head. It was miraculous. The birth of gods is different from that of humans. This story is also recorded in the temple. It is depicted in the sculptures which describe the event. The entire temple structure is built with white marble. I understand that the area also has stones of different colors. But I believe they thought that using white stone to build the temple symbolized purity. Because in ancient Greek mythology, the goddess Athena is a virgin goddess. She is exceptionally pure, but also full of wisdom and strength. She is capable and strong. She can help others and invent things. She is also compassionate and kind. They decided to use white stones, which symbolize purity, to build this. Indeed, that region is rich in white marble. The entire architectural structure is rectangular. From an architectural perspective, it was really grand 2,500 years ago. The outer edge used a total of 46 large columns. This is also known as a peristyle building. The columns stand like soldiers in a row, neatly and orderly. Usually, a column is not made from a single piece of stone, but from many stacked together. The stones weigh about 1 or 2 tons each. Each column weighs about a dozen tons. The gaps between the stones are very small. Take this stone column. It's not just a single piece of stone. It's built with several pieces. But the stone surfaces in between are polished very smoothly. Remember, they didn't have power tools back then. This is incredible. This style of structure was actually a necessity of that era. I've done some research on this. Why did the column go from a round pillar to a decagonal or dodecagonal shape? Because its load-bearing capacity would increase. The overall shape of the column may seem straight at first glance, but it isn't. The shape of the column is actually somewhat like a carrot, thicker at the bottom. As it goes up, it gradually bulges out. This variation is for structural support and mechanics. There are more than 46 columns and even more beyond the perimeter, on the inside. The more columns there are, the bigger the structure that can be supported. Another reason for the columns is that they believed each column might represent a city-state. Each column appears independent, but we are actually united. This idea is also embedded there. Moreover, in between each of the grooves of the column, there is a sharp edge jutting out. This straight edge can be seen as the blade of a knife or an axe. During cold weapon eras, weapons were all made of stone or metal, right? They believed in the power of edge weapons. This power can defend my country and the lives of my people. It means we are the strongest. Athens is an earthquake-prone area. Today, we see this temple in ruins. It has a painful history which I will talk about later, but its ruin was not due to an earthquake. We are studying why it hasn't collapsed after so many years. The first reason is its location, on the large rocky hill called the Acropolis. This is what we call a prime feng shui location, the dragon's eye. They chose a particularly magical feng shui spot. When the surroundings shake vigorously, this doesn't. Its foundation is very solid. Additionally, its columns support the entire structure. When it was built 2,500 years ago, between two stones, a mortise and tenon joint was used. It looks like a short wooden stick. It is said that the groove on top is left with a bit of room for movement. If there is a greater than magnitude 7 earthquake, the column can shake slightly. It'll give it shake resistance. Another benefit is that the two stones are smooth to fit perfectly. They're so smooth, it's like they can stick together. This perfect fit helps prevent misalignment. The structure remains stable. Another crucial aspect of the pillars is that all the pillars are slightly slanted toward the center of the building. This slant is almost imperceptible to the human eye. This inclination helps to counteract the shaking during an earthquake. There are also other details, such as on top of each of the pillars. The beams are also made of stone. There are beams between every 2 columns. The beams are connected to each other, and this structure is also very important. The ancient Greeks had advanced culture and technology. In my opinion, they were world-class. They were already using copper and iron then. At the connection between the beams, they used iron clamps to reinforce it. To secure the clamp further in place, they used lead, which is softer, but excellent for filling gaps. They melted the lead and poured it into the remaining gaps. This makes the iron clamp more tight and stable, fitting snugly into the grooves. This allows the stone beams above to form a solid connection between each other. A match made in heaven. "2,500 years ago, they didn't build a structure only to serve a purpose. They also took into account visual aesthetics. They had already discovered that when our eyes look at a perfectly flat square building, it creates a visual error or illusion. The Parthenon incorporated aesthetic design. It was particularly difficult to do. None of its lines are straight, it subtly rises in the middle, while the two ends remain flat. This is its structure. You don't really notice it when you look. You think it's flat. However, if the building were indeed flat, if it exceeded 30 meters in length, visually, we would feel that the middle is sunken, like it's collapsing. As for each of the columns mentioned earlier, I said they look like oversized carrots. Many scientists have studied them. If the columns were straight, uniformly thick from top to bottom, with humans being so small and the columns over 10 meters tall, visually, we would feel that each column's waist is sucked inward, the middle would appear thin. When the middle section is slightly thicker compared to the rest of the column, it creates a sense of grandeur and beauty. It even makes the column appear straight. This compensates for the visual illusion. The design details of this architecture are meticulous. The four corner columns are thicker than the adjacent columns. Moreover, the distance between them is slightly smaller. What is the benefit of this smaller spacing? The column at the corner is closer to the columns on its immediate left and right. This forms a trio of columns supporting the corner, making it stronger. Thus, it increases its strength. There is another incredible aspect. They also used an architectural aesthetics concept from that era. It is known as the 4:9 ratio. For example, its width and length are approximately 4:9. Also, the height and the width of its front are in a 4:9 ratio. Another 4:9 ratio is in the columns. From the front view, the column width is 4, and the distance between columns is 9. How can there be so much consistency? A constant 4:9 ratio, it's incredible. The distance between them isn't that wide, but placed together, it's so elegant. It's a very harmonious beauty. Another extraordinary architectural feature is its sculptures. This temple features numerous absolutely exquisite sculptures. I believe they can be considered a paradigm in the history of art. One of the earliest paradigms. Originally, in the main hall of this temple, there was a gigantic sculpture of Athena. It was said to be 12 meters tall and used over a ton of gold. The entire statue was primarily made of gold and ivory. It was a masterpiece by the famous sculptor Phidias. This statue, after more than 2,000 years, is now lost. However, a replica of it exists in the US. Another important sculptural artwork is at the front of the temple, in the triangular area above the entrance. The sculpture piece mainly depicts the story of Athena's birth. It has both humans and gods in the same position on the back of the building. The sculptures depict Poseidon and Athena. The story of their contest is on the long friezes on the two sides of the temple. The beams of the structure also feature many intricate carvings. One side depicts the war between the Greeks and their enemies. The other side shows the ancestors of the Greeks. The ancestors are fighting the centaurs. I personally saw some of the sculptures that have survived. From the muscles of the human body and even the muscles of the running horses. The robes worn by the goddess when you actually see the sculptures. You don't think it's stone. You feel like it's a real person sitting there. It's all so lifelike. I remember, on the streets of Athens, you occasionally come across modern replicas of ancient pottery pieces. I find them particularly captivating. The color of the fired clay, what we see now, is not the natural clay color, but the color after artistic process. Their painting skills can be seen on these pottery pieces. The artistic abilities of ancient Greeks were world-class. How did they manage to paint so realistically? In ancient times, people painted on cave walls, but the results weren't realistic. They were rough shapes only. The Greeks and their artistic creativity fill me with deep emotions. Greek history, like many others, is extraordinary, full of twists and turns, ups and downs. Later, it was ruled by the Roman Empire. After being ruled by Rome, the Parthenon was converted into a Roman church. Its deity was changed. Later, as the Roman Empire began to decline, the Ottoman Empire rose. The later leaders of the Ottoman Empire were Muslims, followers of Islam. Thus, the Ottoman Empire occupied the temple. Then, the Parthenon became a mosque during that time. But later, about 500 years ago, the Venetians came and attacked. During the Ottoman rule, gunpowder and weapons were stored in the temple. But the Venetians detonated a bomb, resulting in the destruction of the temple. Around the 1800s, a British scholar, who was also an earl, spent money to acquire many marble sculptures. He paid a hefty sum to buy them. These are now housed in the British Museum in the UK. If we visit the British Museum today, we can still admire the exquisite sculptures from the Parthenon. I believe everyone who sees them will be moved. The civilization of ancient Greece was so sacred and powerful. Its culture, architecture, art, and philosophy were the highest in the world. Its architecture has influenced the architecture of the entire world. Today, 2,000 years later, when you see it, if you understand this history, I think your heart might shed countless tears for it. I have this kind of sentiment. So much bloodshed, so much faith, so much sincerity. For this faith, to protect the Greeks from invasion and the suffering of war, this temple was built. This is not an ordinary building. When I was sitting there, imagining, there was a group of elderly people around the temple, praying silently. Sometimes, when the big bell in the city rang, everyone would chant and pray together. What a breathtaking scene that is. The temple became the soul of the Athenians at that time. It embodied the spirit of all Athenians. Even though today it is somewhat in ruins, severely damaged. What remains after the explosion, the broken walls, is still so striking. In Greece and in Western history, it marks the origin of great philosophy as well. When I have time, I will tell you more about the three great philosophers of the West. Their stories are touching and remarkable. I believe you now definitely want to visit Athens, Greece, to see it and travel for a few days. Just like me, go there, to reflect and visualize the history. Maybe you will be equally moved.
小小的红点里，人生就此欢喜。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了，我美丽了。在茫茫人海之中，让我与你相遇。小小的红点里，人生变得神奇。